10 most dangerous kids in the world right now. Number 10. Kim Edwards and Lucas Markham were a pair of twisted lovebirds. Here's a 2-for-1 section that includes a completely curved team. Kim Edwards and Lucas Markham were 2 or 3 15-year-old lovebirds who stunned the United Kingdom in 2016 when they were engaged with a grim twofold crime. What is accepted to have begun as a joke swelled into the murdering of Kim Edwards' kid mother and 13-year-old sister. Evidently, little Kim wasn't standing out enough to be noticed that she thought she merited from her mom. The pair attacked their casualties with a kitchen blade as they rested and afterward polished them off by covering them with pads. After their cold and unfeeling killings, the couple obviously had a private second, cleaned up together to wash the blood away, and afterward viewed some Twilight movies. Markham admitted that the solitary explanation they murdered Edward's younger sibling was on the grounds that he expected that she'd call the police. Number 9. Will Cornick attacked his teacher in front of the entire classroom. Anne Maguire had committed her whole working life to instructing kids. At 61 years old, she was only a couple months from retirement. The other highlighted character in this shocking story is Will Cornick, who was an apparently ordinary child on a superficial level, yet things aren't generally as they show up. The 15-year-old Cornick was holding a quite huge resentment against his instructor. On April 28, 2014, before his whole Spanish class, Cornick assaulted Maguire from behind with a blade, as she was hanging over another understudy's work area. She passed on of her injuries. The unbalanced understudy supposedly carried a jug of bourbon to class to praise his chilly wrongdoing. He likewise conceded that he had arranged to attack 2 different educators that day. Fortunately, he couldn't totally satisfy his dream. Number 8. James Fairweather was apparently had by demons. On the off chance that you actually get yourself vis-a-vis with a child named James Fairweather, at that point regard this exhortation: run. Run hard, run far, and run quick. On the off chance that you don't, at that point there is a decent possibility that you will wind up on the business end of a long and sharp item. In the event that you don't accept that this 15-year-old executioner is quite possibly the most risky children on the planet at the present time, at that point you ought to ask his 2 casualties. Obviously, you can't on the grounds that they're dead. One of them was a 33-year elderly person who was passed out alcoholic in a recreation centre in Essex, England. Fairweather wounded him for reasons unknown by any stretch of the imagination. He at that point cut a 31-year elderly person in the eyes. He was clearly effectively chasing another casualty when police got him. Normally, he professes to be had and he hears voices. He was condemned to life in jail. Number 7. Daniel Bartlam wanted to plan the perfect attack. Daniel Bartlam imagined that he could pull off the ideal homicide. On April 25, 2011, the then 14-year-old attacked his mom by hitting her with a hook hammer. He at that point continued to drench the house with gas, put a lot of papers on a fire, and afterward went out before it was overwhelmed on fire. Daniel initially told police that it was crafted by a gatecrasher, yet reality at long last came out. Daniel conceded his violations. The genuinely frightening thing about this entire occasion is the absence of a reasonable intention. It is broadly accepted that Daniel essentially needed to check whether he could pull off homicide. He presently has at any rate 16 years to change his procedure. Number 6. Nehemiah Griego just woke up one day and did away with his family. It's normal for individuals to carry out awful violations for no clear explanation. Except Nehemiah Griego, for instance. On January 19, 2013, this 15-year-old child took a .22 type rifle, went into his parents' room, and shot his mom as she dozed. At the point when his more youthful sibling came to perceive what all the uproar was, Nehemiah shot him twice. Next, the youthful insane person went to the next room where his 2- and 5-year-old sisters were falling down in the corner, and he shot them also. He at that point went to the firearm bureau and took out an AR-15 and trusted that his dad will get back after working all day. At the point when his dad got through the entryway some time later, Nehemiah gunned him down as well. He was condemned as an adolescent. Importance: he'll be free when he turns 21. That will be in 2018. Number 5. Jake Evans was inspired by Rob Zombie's Halloween. Who says that being younger than 18 is a revile? On account of Jake Evans, it's a gift. Jake had an arrangement to execute his mom and sister who he lived with, and afterward he planned to go to his grandparents' home and murder them alongside his most established sister. On October 12, 2012, Jake put his insidious strategy into action when he shot his mom and sister. Fortunately for his grandparents and more seasoned sister, Jake called 911 to admit his violations as opposed to daring to his grandparents' home. He professed to have assembled the arrangement in the wake of watching the Rob Zombie revamp of the movie Halloween, in which a kid murders his family members. He maintained a strategic distance from capital punishment since he was a minor, however he actually got a 45-year sentence. Number 4. Yarael Milton wanted an easy score from a couple of dealers. 31-year-old Jamimal Ray and 30-year-old Charles Fisher were street pharmacists, and on June 29, 2015, they organized to sell some Mary Jane. A basic exchange should occur at a recreation center in Omaha, Nebraska. However, the arrangement ended up being a long way from straightforward. Upon their landing in Miller Park, the two were trapped by 3 aggressors. Beam was slaughtered when he took shots to the head and neck, while Fisher was hit in the shoulder and fortunately injured. Certainly, we find out about this sort of thing constantly, yet the genuine stunner is the way that the attackers were little youngsters. 12-year-old Yarael Milton, his 17-year-old sibling, and a 15-year-old companion had intended to burglarize the 2 vendors for a simple score. Seeing that Yarael is a minor, you can rest simple realizing that he'll be back on the roads soon. Number 3. William Schultz preyed on the young and weak. William Schultz is unsettled and incredibly perilous. There's actually no alternate method to put it. It appears to be that the 18-year-old William accepted that the apocalypse was moving close and he needed to knock off a couple of things on his pale list. At the first spot on his list, all things considered, William needed to perceive what it resembled to slaughter another individual. On April 26, 2015, Schultz moved toward a house, cut the force, and entered. He crawled higher up where 9-year-old Jordan Almgren was dozing and cut the kid to death. However, why single out Jordan? Schultz contemplated that Jordan was close to nothing and feeble. He'll have at any rate 25 years to re-examine his life's objectives as he sits in jail hanging tight for parole. Number 2. Bobby Woods Jr. needed to get rid of his girlfriend's pesky kid. It very well may be said with conviction that not all youngsters can think unmistakably and sensibly. This is particularly valid for 17-year-old Bobby Woods Jr. of Lufkin, Texas. Woods lived with his sweetheart and 3-year-old Mason Cutler, who was the child of his better-half sibling. Woods' sweetheart was pregnant, and this represented somewhat of an issue in Bobby's psyche. He felt that their home was too little to even consider accommodating another youngster. His answer: he took youthful Mason to a lake behind their home, driven the baby into the water, and left as the shouting youngster suffocated. A genuinely merciless act and a horrendous arrangement. Woods conceded that he arranged the entire thing. It additionally turns out that his sweetheart realized what occurred, however she was considered not fit to stand preliminary. Number 1. Dequan Stribling, Quindaris Burris, and Jayce West were bored and needed something to do. At the point when generally typical and balanced youthful young people get together, they for the most part participate in exercises that don't include silly homicide. That wasn't the situation in October of 2017 when 3 young people in Baldwin, Mississippi were searching for something to do. Rather than maybe going to a bowling alley, playing computer games, or just innocuously hanging out, they chose to insensitively slaughter a 70-year elderly person. Henry Adams Jays was found outside of his home on October 23. Dequan Stribling and Quindaris Burris are only 13 years of age while Jayce West is 14. The hazardous threesome have each been accused of capital homicide. They may need to stand preliminary as grown-ups, however they won't confront capital punishment because of their ages. While theft is suspected to be the thought process in this silly murdering, police still can't seem to freely affirm it. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.